but he's not omnipotent. Because if he was omnipotent, his powers would not be taken.
So first off, the Annihilog was introduced into Ben 10 as a device created by these cosmic...
Hello everyone, it's your host, SethTheProgrammer, and with me today I have the good old hermano, Chuck the Cybercuck. How's it going?
What's up, boys? We back here again.
And we have a surprise guest with us today, Kuro the artist. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so me and Kuro, we were going to debate on, we were in Twitter DM and he's like, maybe we should have like a live debate. I think you even made a tweet about it, and you had like a poll, like, should I debate Seth? And we've talked a few times, and he was in my Discord, and he was talking to my members about Ben 10. I'm like, Kuro, get in VC, let's talk. And so we started talking, and I wanted to break down his logic on Ben 10, and it kind of came down to Alien X isn't as strong as Kuro thought, but at the same time, he's way stronger than I thought, and what a lot of most people in the Versus community thought, right? So we kind of came to like this middleman agreement. We're just like, let's just collab. Like, let's actually just spit the truth on this matter. So, without further ado, let's break down like why, you know, Ben 10 isn't omnipotent first of all. And Kuro, I think you can touch up on this the best.
Yeah. So the main reason why I was trying to back up that argument is because characters inside of the show would literally say the word omnipotent and be like, Alien X is omnipotent. If Agrigor absorbed a celestial sapien, he'd be omnipotent. So that was the basis I was going off of. And me, before this video happened, I was like completely oblivious to like the entire like debate community. And when you did that response video, it kind of just like explained a little bit better that it's omnipotence in relevance to the show rather than omnipotence as like its literal definition. And Chuck was bringing up a bunch of different characters that like was like true omnipotence for examples, just to like sort of compare and contrast the abilities that Alien X has and the abilities that these omnipotent beings have. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what I brought up to kind of debunk the whole point, you can say names better, but basically what I said is they just said that Alien X was omnipotent in the show, but omnipotent has two different stigmas and definitions. So there's such a thing as like true omnipotence, there's actual omnipotence, well, not actual, but just omnipotence, and then there's omnipotence that can just mean great power. So for example, in Marvel, they even have a guide that says this. It's like, oh, the Living Tribunal, even some forms of Thanos are stated omnipotent, but it's not really saying they're actually omnipotent, just that they're super, super powerful. And the way I followed this up with is there's a being even within the own Omnitrix that's supposed to be stronger than Alien X, right?
Yeah, that's correct. The writers confirmed that Alien X isn't even the strongest alien in the Omnitrix.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then there's a being that's even like above the Omnitrix itself or something like that.
Yeah, there's at least 3 contenders of who can be stronger than Alien X. One being, they appeared in one episode called the Nalgians. They didn't really go into detail what they were. All they said was like they were aware of like at least 26 different dimensions that Ben wouldn't even be able to comprehend the world they're from. They like visit the lower tier dimensions for fun. They have a children's toy that's able to take out a universe. The second is the Quantumalia, the creators of their own universe. They're fifth dimensional, at least. They have fifth dimensional forms that can't be perceived by their eyes, so they perceive them as like different avatars and perceptions. So the third is the Dagon, which is the main like antagonist of the end of the third series, Ultimate Alien. He's basically a demon made of living energy, and he has control over magic and his own religious following. He's multidimensional and all of that. So those are the top 3 contenders that could possibly be the alien in the Omnitrix that is stronger than Alien X.
Yeah, for sure. We also had a small debate or discussion. It was kind of like on whether or not Ben 10 could be erased from existence, because we did have a small textual debate as well when we were still making videos, and it was like we kind of came down to like Cosmic Armor Superman versus Alien X, and it kind of came down to like, could Cosmic Armor, you know, remove Alien X from existence just because he's a higher dimensional tier? And the response that came to when we were in VC was that Ben 10 can be erased from existence because it's happened before. Like with the Chrono Sapien Time Bomb, it literally removed every single Ben 10 from existence. So that was my general point on that. But Chuck, why don't you explain in detail what true omnipotence really is?
As Kuro said, there's like characters that have been called omnipotent, but there's a difference between being actually omnipotent and, you know, being used to mean, you know, great power. So, for example, in DC Comics, Marvel Comics, and Dragon Ball Z, there's been characters that have been stated omnipotent. For example, Odin, he's been stated omnipotent. There's been Galactus, there's been Darkseid, and even Buhan in the manga. He even stated, like, you know, that he wanted to celebrate his omnipotence. So these characters are basically boasting about their great power, but doesn't mean that they are actually omnipotent, like a character, you know, that we've seen are way higher than they are. So in DC Comics, there's a Presence who is one of the strongest characters, but he's not truly omnipotent, if that makes any sense. There's characters like the Rider and the Overmonitor. So the Overmonitor is like the canvas that is used to actually write or draw on the comics themselves, and the Rider is the one who actually portrays the story on there, and they stand above the Presence. And if you go by Marvel, there's the One Above All, who stands above all the abstracts like the Living Tribunal or the Celestials, Infinity, Death, stuff like that. And these guys stand even above Galactus or Odin, who are, you know, quote-unquote omnipotent, but they're really not. And in Dragon Ball Z, well, I mean, people think that Toribot is probably the omnipotent character.
Yeah. Some people think he's not, though.
I mean, in Zeno, I mean, he's the strongest one that we've seen so far in the series, but he's not omnipotent. And that has to do mostly with, okay, are they affected by time in a sense that there's many versions of them? I mean, you can't have more than one omnipotent in the verse.
Well, I would just bring up that Zeno is within someone else's story. So him being like, for example, the writer from DC is technically omnipotent in DC, whereas Zeno is bound by the author and editor's will. So technically, he can't be true omnipotent.
Now, the point is that what it really means to be truly omnipotent is that you have no limitations and you cannot be defeated whatsoever. That's why, like, the DC versus Marvel debates are really, they really comes down to a stalemate, because, you know, it's basically like playing chess, right? You have like two kings.
They can't beat each other at all, yeah. They're just stalemate.
You know, if you look at characters that are actually omnipotent, they have control over the whole realm of existence. They have no limitations. They cannot be defeated. And you could also say that they're like infinite dimensional. If not, they aren't even bound by dimensions at all, and they're actually outerversal, which means that they exist outside of all of existence. There's characters that are like that, like Cosmic Armor Superman, who stands above like the whole limbo or the multiverse, but even he is not omnipotent, or he's not even the strongest one.
Yeah, he still was limited. He was still limited by the Overmonitor.
There's a lot more things that determine what omnipotence is, and dimensional tiering goes along with that, and also, you know, all these characters that have been stated, that is usually hyperbole, which is what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, let's talk about the actual topic of the video now. Why he's stronger than people think. Because, like, as now, we're just kind of, like, nerfing him down from omnipotence. But, like, we're here to talk about why he's stronger. And basically, the thing that happens, you know, in fictional debates is people, when they talk about Alien X, they usually say, well, he's Universal Plus. And, you know, I was one of those people. I was one of those, you know, cunts, right? Well, he recreated a universe, and he survived, you know, with no time.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different features that come into play when talking about Celestial Sapiens. For one, it's fairly obvious, like, Ben 10 has had many iterations of the show, despite it being the same continuity, but every iteration would have a different subtitle. The art style would change, the voice actors would change and everything, and it was always just kind of, like, written off as, like, you should just understand the fact that it's the same show, it's the same timeline, and just kind of ignore it. But then, the episode where Ben finally gained control over Alien X and doesn't have to worry about Serena or Bellicus, it's discovered that Celestial Sapiens are the reason the art style and the voice actors and everything in the show keeps changing. Every time there's a continuity error, or anything, like, it's always like the work of Celestial Sapiens.
Celestial Sapiens change the universe all the time. Why, even First Thinker Adsma's voice and appearance has changed on at least 3 occasions.
Like, for instance, like with the 4th series, like Omniverse, it literally implies, like, there's an entire Omniverse. Like, there's, like, infinite dimensions, infinite, like, parallel universes and everything, and those are, like, constantly being rewritten because the Celestial Sapiens are outside of the multiverse in this sort of pocket dimension called the Forge of Creation, which is inaccessible to anybody who is either not a Celestial Sapien or doesn't have the Map of Infinity, which is this whole other thing. And then there was this recent author statement by Duncan Rouleau, one of the creators of Ben 10 and 1/4 of Man of Action, that stated that all the different versions of Ben share the same timeline and DNA in the Omnitrix, making Alien X the same. Beings existing outside of time and space are simultaneously everywhere and nowhere at the same time, like Schrodinger's cat. As to which one they'd help depends on who activates first. So this was actually a recent statement that was discovered after all 4 of our videos were made. So basically, instead of the multiple versions of Ben becoming their own version of Alien X, thus creating multiple versions of Alien X, every version of Ben is always using the same version of Alien X. He's just one guy. And he's just switching between different Omnitrixes for whoever needs him at that given moment.
So there's not multiple versions of that one Alien X?
There's not. That one Alien X is just is just like that Alien X.
Right, so there's not multiple versions, and he's above the concept of time. Now, when it comes to Omniverses is a little bit weird because I feel like every fiction has its own definition of what an Omniverse is. So, for instance, I don't know if this is Marvel or if it's DC, but basically an Omniverse in Marvel or DC can possibly include other like corporations and franchises. So, for instance, I believe Ben 10 might be affiliated with DC a little bit. I don't know. You might be able to fill me in on that. But even if it's not directly linked, it might be like a megaverse or a multiverse within the DC's Omniverse, right?
No, I was just going to say they do kind of correlate in the ways that the original crew Man of Action were brought on. They've all came from stems of writing for comics like Deadpool, the Justice League, and everything. Then with the second series from Alien Force onward, with the showrunner Dwayne McDuffie, he was brought on specifically because he created Static Shock. He wrote for Justice League Unlimited and all of that. So it shares a lot of same properties with DC. One of the definitive things that keeps it at least outside of the same DC, of the main DC timeline, but could still potentially like DC exists in the multiverse and Ben can like go visit Superman or anything, is the fact that the Plumbers existing, which is like, for those that don't know, is this intergalactic police force existing at the same time as the Green Lantern Corps. Like there's no way they wouldn't have interacted by now. So that at least like separates their universes, but they can potentially be contained in the same multiverse or omniverse.
Yeah, for sure. And for example, what I mean by other franchises, there's like a scene where Booster Gold is with Superman, and they're talking to like this AI, and basically Booster Gold suggests that there's an AI called Jarvis from another timeline, and Jarvis is quite clearly talking about like Marvel's Jarvis, with like Iron Man. So there are, distinctions like that. So saying he's like true omniversal or something might be a little bit out there. But it could be a possibility. But what we're basically saying though is that Alien X, he's outside of time, completely unaffected by time, and he rewrote an entire multiversal, possibly plus entity and beyond. So saying he's universal plus, like most of these fictional, sites or debates say, is actually wrong. Is what we're generally trying to get at here. Chuck, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, so a thing that like people seem to misunderstand about the the whole debating thing was our point wasn't to shit on Alien X. We're trying to say that he was weak or something. We even said in the first video, look, he's at least universal plus because he can recreate an entire universe, right? Although not perfectly, because Kuro himself even showed that not everything was perfectly the same, right?
When Ben recreated the universe, just flat out, there was a lot of different changes, which puts into question like how much actual control he has over his abilities, because when the universe was being destroyed, he actually questioned it. He was like, wait, the universe really is being destroyed, as if like it was literally happening and he had no idea, yet he was able to survive. So that was like an automatic thing. And then like when he's creating the entire universe, like, and everything in it, it's like, did he have to think about every single specific thing, or was it just like an automatic reset? Because in a couple seasons later, when he's put on trial for like illegally recreating the universe, he mentions that he couldn't get like his favorite flavor smoothie right, which sort of implies that was a decision he had to make, which like questions like, if somebody had a secret that he never told Ben and Ben recreated the universe, does that secret still exist? Did he have to think about all of physics? Did he have to think about each individual person, people he hasn't even met? So are some of his abilities like automatic to the point where, like, say if like he was in a battle with Jiren and he just said the words restrain Jiren without needing like any detail, like what would happen? Like would something just automatically suffice? And one thing while I'm at this tangent that I want to clear up, that a lot of people have misconceptions about Ben, is they think of Ben and they assume like he has a time limit on the Omnitrix. He's still 10 years old. He can only be one alien at a time. And I've been trying to stress this point, but not only does he not have a time limit, he can switch from alien to alien, and he's not 10 years old anymore. But when he mastered Alien X, he doesn't have to go through the decision-making process with Bellicus and Serena anymore. In fact, there's an episode later after that where he uses Alien X, and not for a single second is he frozen in time. He's constantly moving, he's constantly doing things, like pretty much like explaining like he can really use this form to his full potential now. He's not going to time out. He doesn't have to debate. And he really like has like a sense of how it works at that point.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, because Alien X is above time, if he just made all those decisions instantly, because he may have infinite speed if he's above time itself. That's usually how people, correlate it. So if you're not bound by time, you usually have infinite stats. Isn't that right, Chuck? So for example, like in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, there's a Gold Experience Requiem who has infinite speed because he can move in like a universal time step or something like that, so he can move without time. So
it's pretty damn OP.
So yeah, so basically, if Alien X had infinite time, he could definitely make all those decisions, but you could also argue that he didn't just sit there for like a long period of time, thinking every detail in the universe. You could also think that he just has insane intelligence while he's in that state.
Yeah, I could see how that's happening, because there's seems to be like two different like versions of how he uses his abilities. One where like the very first time he ever transformed into him he did something, and then later on they have a scene saying like, we already gave you a break. So he transformed into Alien X, right. They had a discussion, he explained how the powers work all within like half a second, and then there's like points where he was like frozen in time as if things were passing in real time. But once he was able to gain control of it, it's pretty much like anything he does inside of there does not matter until it's like physically put into like motion or anything. So like whether it's like hyper intelligence or hyper speed, either way it's perceived, there doesn't really seem to be a limit to what, not like a limit to his abilities, but there's no limit to that's like
shown.
Yeah
So we went on like a tirade about like, oh well, Ben 10's not omnipotent, but then we just said he had infinite speed. So it's like, what does that exactly mean? And Chuck was trying to, ask me earlier, you should probably go on a little bit about dimensional tiering. And I think it's important because we talked about why, Alien X isn't the absolute strongest in fiction and why he's not the weakest in fiction, but where exactly is he, right? So I think the best way to go over this is we need to kind of like discuss the Chrono Sapien time bomb. So why don't you explain what the Chrono Sapien time bomb is actually capable of?
Okay, so the Chrono Sapien time bomb was programmed to destroy every single universe except for the one it was in.
Which is a multiverse plus.
So it technically destroyed like an infinite amount of things except for that one universe. But through like a series of events, it was able to be reversed by one of his aliens' clockwork, nonetheless Alien X. And it's hard for me to accept that the time bomb is like a definitive
limit.
Yeah, because like for instance, there's an alien he has named Chromastone. He first shows up. The very first thing he does is he's invulnerable to electricity. A few episodes later, he gets electrocuted. There's an alien Terraspin who's invincible to mana, which is basically this universe's ki or chakra or internal energy or whatever you want to call it. And he was fighting a mana user, and he got affected by it. And like when this was brought up to the writers, they claimed like Ben wasn't concentrating. Like he needs to activate this natural invulnerability or something. They were probably just pulling this out of their ass. But with the way that this type of logic applies to the series, it could say that, like, either A, Alien X could have just activated some type of invulnerability to the time bomb, or B, since Paradox survived by escaping to a pocket dimension, had been known what he was dealing with was a time bomb, he could have just shielded himself in a pocket dimension and popped right back out. I think the only reason he was defeated was he had absolutely no idea what a time bomb was, therefore he couldn't make a decision.
Yeah, so really one of the main weaknesses of Alien X is kind of like a Goku thing, a little bit different though. It's like if he's just off guard or has no knowledge of it, it could catch him off guard or by surprise, but that shouldn't be used to limit him. By this logic, we could limit Super Saiyan Blue Goku to laser level, like from the movies, or we could limit him to laser level in his base form, or etc., or even that he got scraped by a bullet, yeah, in the Dragon Ball Super. And off-guard feats or not fully there feats shouldn't be used to describe a limitation, for sure. I definitely agree with that. And like we said before, he rewrote possibly the entire multiverse that this bomb is destroying. So it's like, I have no idea, how strong this bomb would really be capable of to, overpower that. But as the writer said, it's more than likely he just wasn't concentrating completely. So, Chuck, why don't we go into a little bit more detail about what this exactly means for, Alien X and where we should kind of place him as, a generosity or, even like a low ball.
Yeah, so I was actually discussing this earlier, and there's actually a vast difference between like hacks or, abilities and raw power. And sometimes in, comics or even Dragon Ball, we know that some hacks can be like overpowered, if someone's stronger than you. Like for example, Hit, he wasn't able to do anything against Jiren because he was way stronger than him, and that's why his hacks proved to be really futile. But there are some abilities that can like overcome, the raw power limitations of a character, like with the Mafuba, which Master Roshi was able to use on Frost, and he was gonna use it on Megetta, and it even worked on Vegeta, who are way stronger than he is. But the thing is, when you go into reality warping, there's different levels of that. And for example, let's just bring up Janemba, because he's like really the only reality warper in the series, going with non-canon, but
at least in Dragon Ball, yeah.
In Dragon Ball. So in terms of range, he's able to manipulate like the macrocosm. But in terms of raw power, if you compare him to like Jiren or Beerus or Super Saiyan Blue Vegito, he would be completely outclassed. He wouldn't be able to do anything to them because these characters are way beyond universal, and I mean Janemba is just like no match for that at all. He does have multi-universal range with his hacks, but in terms of raw power, he isn't powerful enough to even defeat Gogeta. Or Gogeta.
Gogeta.
Gogeta. So like he wasn't able to defeat Gogeta, and they're like nothing comparable to like the God tiers of Dragon Ball Super, and the whole point is that, if he was able to like change all of that in the multiverse, then you could say he has, reality warping range or, a scale on those multiversal levels very easily, and I would agree with that. However, it does not necessarily mean that he has the destructive capacity, to destroy like, infinite multiverses or stuff like that, right?
It's still him rewriting those universes though. He's still changing them and their properties entirely. So it's still like multiversal range. Yeah, and it should somewhat correlate to destructive power a little bit, because he is recreating all of that time-space as well. Well, I don't know if he's recreating the time-space. That might actually be a different one. Recreating the actual time-space, but he is like redrawing it. I don't know how you redraw space itself, but if you are redrawing the space itself, you would be technically drawing the time interwoven into it, which would be very strange, but
I actually have a really good example. So let's say you have like a vase and it breaks, right? And then you try to fix it with super glue or whatever the fuck. So you basically like recover the majority of the vase, but it isn't like perfectly like as it was, instead of just destroying it entirely or creating an entire new one, right? What Alien X did, he kind of basically repaired the vase. He didn't like destroy it altogether or create a new one altogether, which actually goes into the whole thing about how he recreated the universe, but it wasn't perfect, right? There was still some things that weren't originally there from the before it was destroyed. The matter of the fact is, it is very clear that he would have multiversal ranges of reality warping, and as I said, destructive capacity is definitely a lot more debatable. But yeah, like definitely he would be very powerful in that regard. And the whole thing about the fifth dimension and stuff like that, dimensional tiering, infinities beyond infinity, You know, like if you look into Marvel, there's characters that you know, they have a higher set of infinity, meaning they're you know, infinitely more powerful than another one, which is why, for example, if you compare the Living Tribunal to like Eternity or the Beyonder to Living Tribunal, they are all like really damn powerful, but you know, they're still one above the other. Yeah, so yeah, Seth, I'm pretty sure you can, you know, give a really good detailed explanation on the dimensional tiering.
So what I'm going to subscribe for Alien X here is I'm pretty sure he's going to fall under about a 5th dimensional entity. The reason I say this is because it goes a little something like this in Versus Algorithm. So you have, you know, the normal 3D beings, which would basically be most of fiction. And then you have beings that are infinite 3D, can destroy infinite 3D matter, blah, blah, blah. And then you have beings that, you know, go beyond that can destroy infinite 3D and its space-time from existence, which would be more like the 4D range. Then you have beings that can destroy infinite infinities of 4D universes and that are beyond the concept of time itself. In a Versus algorithm, this would more than likely be 5th dimensional, right? And Alien X, who is beyond time, beyond infinite infinities, would more than likely fall under a 5th dimensional entity. Now, a dimensional tier in fiction is a little bit something like, you know, infinities being greater than each other. So, for example, if you said 1 plus 2 plus 3 onto infinity, and then you had 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 onto infinity, the 1.1, the one that has the, you know, the 0.1s in it, would be greater than if you just did a singular number onto infinity. So this is how levels of infinity work, but it's a little bit different because it's adding an extra dimension to the calculation that one doesn't have, making it infinitely greater than the other infinity. Appealing to actual math in reality to debunk a concept in fiction that is used is illogical. It's called an appeal to reality fallacy that me and Chuck coined, by the way. TM. So like, fiction does use this logic. There's actually a Marvel scan that uses the same exact quotes I just did. And just because if you agree, oh, well, every infinity is the same in reality, doesn't mean that's how it works in fiction at all. And if the authors of that story who are omnipotent over their story want it that way, that's how it's just going to be. So the entire argument is just dumb anyway. Other than that, Kuro, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, we're also doing a collab together on my channel with Just the Robot. You can go check that out, where Seth and Just a Robot review the first 5 chapters of my webcomic 5 years later. And I also want to say that in the end, I am not a debater, and I do not feel the need to elaborate on any of this further. I really hope this video puts an end to it. I agree with a lot of your points, and I love the fact that you guys agree with mine. And the fact that we're able to finally put this to rest. Hopefully this doesn't bring up any more questions. And probably will, though, to be honest.
Yeah, probably will.
But I mean, at least we're able to like talk this out and not just like say we're going to and then completely ignore it.
Sure.
Like your previous Dragon Ball community video, which was pretty interesting. If you guys haven't checked that out, you should check it out. But yeah, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, and also thank you for Kuro for making me that you know, diva Goku Black.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes, awesome.
Pretty damn badass. But yeah,
Of course.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, anyways, guys, so Alien X is an omnipotent. He's not universal. He's just way stronger than people thought. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and till next time.
peace out, thoughts.